Well, hello, folks. Uh, I've been. Uh, I'm not. I don't think I'm going to do the bells and whistles anymore. Much about titles or music jingles because people don't care, and it's just more work. And since I'm producing this whole thing by myself, reading in the morning a bit and then putting something together takes a little bit of time. So I have other things I have to do as well. So just streamline a bit of my creative work here on this YouTube hobby. Um, so uh, I've read a few things recently about um, economic issues. Of course, the tariff wars is a big deal. And I've been listening a little bit to the Lever podcast. Um, it's a time, uh, Lever Time. It's an outlet. Anyway, they talk about U.S. issues mostly with topics like Trump's Tuesday Night Massacre, big tech's forever war. Do Democrats have a game plan? The planet is heating up whether you care or not. Is it still safe to fly? I was wondering about that because it seems that there's a lot of aviation mishaps in the States these days. And it's kind of weird. RFK's beef with big food, Trump's tariff war explained, and I think that one was with a union head, the auto workers. Uh, I forgot the acronym for it, but he's like the head of the auto workers union. And it's interesting because unfortunately, manufacturing jobs aren't coming back for a lot of reasons, but basically, I think it's just because modern techno industrial civilization is going down. Uh, Growth is going to wreck our ability to survive on this planet. Um, it's the only planet we have. I don't know why I even said planet, but um, I read and saw a couple videos about plastic pollution and microplastics and so on. And this is a huge deal. And we're making more and more plastic every year, and it's projected to continue going for decades. The Permian Basin provided a lot of raw materials for plastic manufacturing recently. So the amount of plastic we're producing is a lot because it's inexpensive at the moment to do so. That'll change over time, but the pollution from plastics will not go away for hundreds of years. I don't know, thousands of years. But it's already having an impact, like other forever chemicals are, PFAS and whatnot, on human health and welfare, as well as on the integrity and health of ecosystems. So, ocean acidification, all these things piling up, uh, temperature changes in the ocean affecting fisheries, on and on and on. There's just so many elements to the polycrisis that it's almost impossible to get your head around it. But we keep talking about economics as if we're going to go back to something. Basically, the last couple hundred years, I mean, we're going to continue to make stuff and sell stuff, and that's going to be the basis for our global culture. It's making stuff and selling stuff and consuming stuff. And that's it. I would say anyone getting an education today might want to learn, blacksmithing or become an electrician while you're getting your law degree or whatever else you're going to do, your coding uh, capabilities, skills. You might want to add something else to that that's more in line with the Middle Ages. I'm not saying it's going to happen that fast, but um, the one thing that most people studying collapse, historically or contemporarily, um, don't factor is just the numbers of problems we're facing in our predicament, the systemic characteristics of these things. Everything's interwoven. So I was working on something about, entanglement and as it relates to sociology and ecology and systems, obviously, systems theory and Moloch, blame it on Moloch. We just can't help it. We can't fix the problems because Moloch, whatever. And of course, most of my friends want to be optimists, so they still adhere to the idea that it's all an engineering problem. The scientists and the engineers and the entrepreneurs and the investor class is going to fix everything. But basically, those people are part of the problem. I mean, I'm not saying scientists are bad or entrepreneurs are bad or engineers are bad. They're all great. But our way of life under their efforts, or their efforts as they're concerned with our way of life, causes the problem. It's at the root cause of the problem. So we're not going to engineer our way out of this crisis. We're not going to finance our way out of it, print money. We're not going to science our way out of the problem. We're not going to pray our way out of the problem. It's going to continue. Collapse will continue until a lot of people disappear. And then maybe for 20 million people on the planet, the leftovers eventually, sometime in the future, will figure out how to live sustainably. I read a piece about agriculture, just how many acres per person are required to have a prosperous, healthy, well-fed life. And the problems with that are myriad, having to do with chemical fertilizers and intensive farming, monocultures, runoff. It's just tons and tons of things going on there. And still, with all the food that we produce, and 8-point-something billion people on the planet, thanks to chemical fertilizers and fossil fuels, the agricultural revolution, we still have people who are starving to death and people who have metabolic disease because they're eating crappy diets. So yeah, JFK Jr. is a goofball, or I mean RFK Jr. is a goofball, but some of his intuitions about big food are correct in a way. But you can't blame people for eating what they're sold. The marketing is powerful. There's so much happiness. Super Bowl ads about pizzas and whatnot. So, yeah, marketing is sophisticated, and all of us are putty in marketers' hands, basically. We're going to do what they say. And it fulfills our jonesing for our addictions, whether it's food or something else. But these problems will continue to accelerate. Anything we do in our neoliberal global economy, whether you're in China, India, or wherever, Africa, accelerates our problems and worsens our predicament until at some point there's no turning the ship around. And so there's going to be a slow decline for many reasons. Poison, microplastics, shrinking dicks, endocrine problems, and so on and so forth. Declining birth rates. It's mind-boggling to see how it's accelerating. But we don't think about it. Out of sight, out of mind. We don't want to confront these things. So on the economic front, we have people who can make sense of how the economy works, and that's wonderful. If you're curious about things like that. And Michael Hudson published a piece with the Geopolitical Economy Report. Well, he originally published at Democracy Collective. It's called Donald Trump Has No Plans to Deal with the Problems That Caused U.S. Deindustrialization. His tariffs are just a neoliberal program under another guise to benefit the wealthy donor class. It's a long paper, but it's extremely good, and I think people should read it and try to digest what it's saying. But I wrote a comment to this piece, and basically my comment dealt with overshoot. So nothing in this article confronts overshoot or energy or things like that. It's purely economics, and I think it's very correct in its perspective on things. We are heading into another Gilded Age. The robber barons of 2025 have more tools for controlling us than ever. And so we're in deep trouble trying to keep up with things. And it's going to be very hard for us to resist. I hate to use this analogy because it sounds kind of lame and simplistic, but we're already living in the Hunger Games. And someday in the near future, the oligarchs are going to have their gated crypto cities, their little city states. They're going to control a lot of resources, basically through bribery and a kind of wage slavery, which we already well understand. And the people on the periphery are going to be really in trouble. So we're going to be scraping by. And we're going to be scraping by while the overall collapse happens. Because just because the rich people are okay and having a nice life with access to healthcare and technology and so on, doesn't mean that the decline and fall and overshoot and climate change and all these other problems just disappears. It's not as if they're protected in their gated communities forever. Eventually they die too. So, but the rich people, the really super powerful high net worth people don't believe that, because they're at the forefront of this optimistic, everything's an engineering or a science problem. And we're so rational and we're so damn smart, we can fix it all. Externalities, collateral damage, destruction, pollution, war, but we can fix it. We cause some problems, you break things, but you fix it, and then everything's better. Better for them, not better for you. The idea that the ACLU guy is going to have, due to tariffs, better jobs manufacturing cars in the future is ridiculous. We need fewer cars, not more cars. So yeah, if you're working on infrastructure that's has sustainability at the core of its values, then you have a job manufacturing something or creating something, technology or services or whatever. If not, you're just accelerating the inevitable, extinction of our species, basically. We don't believe we can go extinct because we're so damn smart. We're going to be flying our spaceships around the universe in 5 years. But human supremacy is ridiculous, because we can't exist on this planet without everything else, without the living systems that support us. And we're not going to create machines that are aligned with human values, because those machines are not going to be human. So even if they are smart, we'd be lucky if they treated us like a pet. You think of Jain, and I mean that in the Indian religion, Jainism, Jain robots who don't want to kill anything. That would be nice. But even so, if we're perpetrating the sixth extinction at the moment at such a rate, how long does it take for evolvable plants and animals to get a foothold again? How much of the land mass do we have to leave alone, abandon, leave fallow, leave wild. They talk about rewilding. We don't rewild shit. We just get lost, disappear, and then things start to rewild again. But how many hundreds of thousands of years or whatever does it take for, another species of something to evolve out of something, right? It takes a long time. Evolution is millions and millions of years, right? Of course, if you're a religionist, then you don't believe in evolution, which is comfortable for you. That's very nice. You don't have to learn anything. And you can feel like God's going to sort you out. Jesus is going to take the wheel eventually after the temple is rebuilt and so on and so forth. And greater Israel covers all of the Middle East and whatnot. And then you can get rid of the you know who because God doesn't like them either, right? Anyway, it's all pretty silly. And, trying to fix economics, and I'm talking about, classical economics, go back to the founding fathers, go back to Locke and Smith and so on. You don't have to go to Ricardo and all these other guys, obviously Hayek and whatever. But just the expansive, conquering creature we've been since the dawn of civilization 8 or 10,000 years ago. And before that, because out of Africa, back into Africa, we're wandering around the planet because we're smart and we can do it, taking advantage of everything. You know, we've been around doing this thing for a long time, and just looking through the lens of modern economic theory and belief systems and methods and so on, politics, isn't going to help us at all. I mean, we need a radical rethink of what economics means. What is it? We need a new culture. I mean, a profoundly different culture. But, that's not going to happen because you talk about degrowth, population, that's verboten, unspeakable, can't go there. So basically, you just have to wait for people to die. And some modern Malthusians, it's like, well, let the pandemics come. It'll cull the poor people. Let the wars come. It'll cull the poor people. Some of these ideas that the conspiracists have are intuitions that are pretty right on. It's just the causes they get confused about. They don't understand all the complex causes and mechanisms within those causes that make us live like this. They think it's a bunch of goofball supervillains in a smoke-filled room doing it to us, and it isn't. It's structured built into the system that we all believe in, along with the narratives that we all believe in, and it emerges and flows out of that. All of our problems emerge and flow out of that. So it's hard to imagine. But so what's going to happen basically is, the inevitable die-off of human beings. And then whatever comes after that. Do we go back to, civil wars and all this kind of stuff, forging blades and shields and whatever, and doing it all over again? The point is, we've ravaged and devastated nature so badly during modernity that it's going to take, I don't know how many tens of thousands of years to bounce back. If we were good stewards and we wanted to help to accelerate the bouncing back of wild nature and everything, which isn't going to happen, it would still take generations upon generations to see the project through. And we'd have to be raised from childhood to believe that that was the most important thing about life itself, was protecting and stewarding complex, great nature, for our lifetime, and living a nice, happy life, having enough food and leisure to enjoy normal human relations and experience the grand awe of nature and the sacredness of nature and all those beautiful things and feelings that we could have. But we're not going to go there because we're all addicts. And if you're an addict, how difficult it is to stop a bad habit and replace it with a good one. People say, well, just, do do something else. And then you'll replace the bad habit with a new habit that's good. You know, it's difficult to do that, as we all know. It's really hard. One day at a time. God grant me. Um, so I think you should read that article because it'll get your head out of the mainstream BS, which is the same old for decade after decade. Never watch cable news ever. Never watch 60 Minutes. It's all very, very well designed propaganda. There's no information there, which, there are some authors out there that, journalists and so on, that actually do good work. And let's see here. You don't like them because they have a bias that, you know, doesn't hate Putler as much as Zelensky hates Putler. And so you can't listen to the guy because, he's not in the cable news mode of thinking. But this guy he publishes some good information. The good thing is all the links are there and you can easily vet him. What are his biases? What are his sources of information? And that's Simplicius76 on Substack. And he did a little piece reviewing the 60 Minutes interview with Zelensky and obviously looking at the Ukraine war and that absurdity. So I think you should read that because, maybe it rubs you the wrong way because God knows Putler is bad and that's all you need to know about the world is Putler is bad and you're already home. But the fact is we can't afford to take over Russia and control all the resources, and they can't afford to take over Europe. What we should be doing is collaborating across cultures, as I say all the time, to get ourselves out of this predicament, if it's at all possible. But no, you don't want to do that, so you want to prepare for war. So, people talk about the manufacturing base was there for us to convert automobile factories and other factories into building Liberty ships and tanks and whatever during World War II. And, that's why we beat the Nazis and stuff. Yeah, the Soviet Union and the US and everybody used their industrial capacity at that time to kill millions of people. Wasn't that fun? I mean, when are we going to get over it? What possible good can come from yet another huge effort to make war? We have to make peace. That should be our absolute focus. And any leader that doesn't want to do that, we should kick them out. And it doesn't matter where you're from. I mean, if you're from Nigeria or from Thailand, just throw a dart at a map from Chile, from Argentina, from Brazil, whatever. We can't afford to do that anymore. We've been doing this for decades, for generations, for hundreds of years, cutting down trees to have farmland and to support our dependents, which are, pigs and cows and sheep and chickens and whatnot and people. And eventually you get to a point where you cross a certain tipping point and you're messed up. And we're accelerating towards those tipping points. And we accelerate faster and faster every year, which is why I got interested in accelerationism way back when. But so, it's important to understand what these world leaders are thinking. What is the Belt and Road, right? And that's another piece that was incredibly good by Indica, which you won't like him because he's critical of the West. And you don't want to think that way because you're great. There's Western supremacy. Above that, there's human supremacy. And then there's white supremacy. There's all these national supremacies. There's all these supremacies. And because you belong to one team, you're the ultimate, supremacist because not only are you from America, but you're a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant American, and you're from the Western civilization supremacy, plus you're a human being, plus you're a Christian, plus you're whatever. And it makes you ultra, super, 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 super supremacist. So you can't do no wrong. So anything that goes against your identity as a super, 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 ultra, ultimate supremacist depresses you and hurts your feelings and bums you out. And so you just won't learn anything. You, some other perspective, you're going to hide from that. You're not going to want to look at it. But anyway, Indica's going into the different ways of thinking. So the art of doing nothing and win by fuck you. He's doing a riff on ancient Chinese wisdom. So the art of war, Confucius, and all these people. In the Analects, he says, the master said, is Shun not an example of someone who ruled by means of Wu Wei? What did he do? He made himself reverent and took his proper ritual position facing south. That is all. But what he goes on to explain in this article is that that's all about preparation. So pre-production planning prevents piss poor performance. Preparation is everything. You're not going to win the Super Bowl without a hell of a lot of preparation for your whole life. You know what I'm saying? And we forget that it takes decades of preparation to do something great, whether it's at the Olympics or in your business. And, you know, we haven't done any preparation for the future in the West for a long time. Europe is just fucking asleep at the wheel. America's asleep at the wheel. Western civilization is asleep at the wheel. He's making a point here that China has been preparing for the Belt and Road Initiative and all that for a long time. And he talks about Xi Jinping and his experience. Some of it's propaganda, but the fact is, you know, Xi had as life experience, and a lot of that made him think that building infrastructure was the best way to have power. And they certainly accomplished that, did they not? Are you scared of the Belt and Road? Is America apoplectic about the possibility of China going through the Middle East with a high-speed train system? We're not building any, but we can't let them do it because fuck, we'll all be speaking Mandarin in 5 years. Anyway, it's pretty damn stupid. So he quotes a lot of fun Sun Tzu stuff. The state official in China says trade wars produce no winners, and protectionism leads up a blind alley. The economic success of both China and the U.S. presents shared opportunities rather than mutual threats. At the same time, however, Master Sun didn't raise no bitch. So their Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman also said, if war is what the U.S. wants, be it a tariff war, a trade war, or any other type of war, we're ready to fight to the end. Yeah, you know, you're going to bomb somebody into submission. You're going to kill fucking men, women, and children in Yemen with bombs till the cows come home. They're not going to give up. History has shown us that bombing and firebombing doesn't win shit. I mean, you destroyed a certain kind of Iraq, but another kind of Iraq is still there, folks. And it's not McDonald's and Pizza Hut. There's no NFL franchise in Baghdad. And the whole war that was ginned up from 2011, Jeffrey Sachs talks about against Syria, it doesn't get you shit, gets you nothing. But certain class of people in those crypto city states that exist, by the way, they're just more diffused and a wider network at the moment because, you know, we haven't quite gotten there yet where they're all gated communities. You know, they live in a completely different world than we do, and they are taking advantage of everything. So they make money on the tariff wars. They make money on COVID. They make money when there's a war. Stock market goes up, down. They don't give a fuck. They're going to make money, and they're going to do it in coordinatedly, and they're going to do it with insider trading and with an abundance of information. And they're not playing game theory for you, for the best of all possible worlds. They're playing game theory for themselves. All their calculations go into profits, making more money and having more control. Because once you have a certain amount of money, the only thing you want is more control. So he talks about the trade war. It's pretty damn good. And there's a nice little map of the Belt and Road to date. And you know, I've been in and out of China since 1980, so I've seen this shit. And most Americans, I don't think, understand it. What? I don't know what they're doing. Even though most of the shit they buy at Target is made in China. And why was that? Ross Perot was right. A big, giant sucking sound to the south. But we didn't care because the people who want profits don't give a fuck if the job's in Mexico or if Mexican laborers make a buck. They don't care. You know, send the factories to China or Vietnam or Bangladesh or wherever. Who cares? As long as we're making money, we can do share buybacks and we can give, you know, dividends to shareholders and whatnot, and make the top 1% obscenely wealthy. They don't give a flying fuck, and they're never going to. Economics is a game that the mass majority of us aren't going to win. That having been said, the median income in the United States is over $80,000. Tell that to a Portuguese person. And Portugal has sold many of its assets to China and the United States. Banks, energy companies, insurance companies, and so on. So, you know, global economic system, financialized neoliberal capital is a global thing. It's not limited to one little clique here and there, you know, the East India Company or the Dutch East India Company or something. You know, that whole competition is ages ago, as is, you know, the glory days of Portugal's empire and so on. Right now, we're living in a time where your whole life can be bought and sold easily. Capital is international. It's free. Capital is free. You have to look at Milton Friedman and these kind of people, Ayn Rand and whatever, because it's all about making businesses free. And they're not democratic, they're autocracies, dictatorships. But big business has to be free. Capital has to free flow around the planet. But you don't matter. Democracy is a joke. You have a tiny bit of agency through your vote. And you have to vote for the same assholes. If you're in the States or in the UK, you vote for the same assholes. It doesn't matter what party they're in. They're the same. Their values, their thinking, their belief systems, their narratives. It's slightly different just to give you the illusion of a competition between two bad things where you can think that one is worse than the other. And then I'm going to vote for the least worst thing. And that's what you get. And in the meantime, you believe that there is this huge difference between Biden and Trump and so on. But it's the same system. Nothing's changed, and it hasn't for decades. And it's just accelerating towards overshoot and collapse. And if you study it from a science point of view, an engineering point of view, an energy point of view, a historical point of view in terms of deep time, geological time, and evolution and so on, and from a biological point of view, you see it. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. So what do you do? What do you do? Well, you have to divorce yourself from believing, at least, in this system. Drop your belief in it, your faith in it, and start to use your imagination and educate yourself so that you can probably have some ideas about what must be done. And maybe it's just hospice care, or maybe it's mitigation, or maybe it's a gentler collapse or a kinder, gentler collapse or something like that. But nothing's getting any better for you. Uh, I, I'm telling you, man. I'm a nobody, but it's from what I've learned over the years and my travels and stuff is it's not going to get any better for you. The next gen of Samsung smartphone isn't going to help you much. And using AI tools to do your journalism or research isn't going to help you much at the end of the day. If you don't have food, and if you're poisoning the environment and yourself, and if you're addicted to 25 things and can't think your way out of a paper bag, none of this shit's going to help you much. So, unfortunately, you're going to have to face it sooner or later. I think it's more fun to face it sooner because it gives you an opportunity to learn and grow and do what life is all about, which is developing as a human being your heart, your mind, your soul, your beliefs, your ideas, and to update them. You know, Occam's razor and Pascal's wager and Bayesian reasoning and all that kind of thing. Give yourself a whole panoply of possibilities and a tiny fraction bit more agency. At least you know you're getting fucked. And you're not being gaslighted all the time. Like, well, I wasn't raped. He was just in a bad mood, and I wasn't as affectionate as I normally am, and it's my fault, you know. Or victim blaming, scapegoating, all the other shit that goes along with this nonsense that they're constantly feeding us. We have to get beyond it. That's why I post this kind of, oh, is it heterodox? Is it weird? Uncomfortable stuff on Facebook, Globe Hackers and Minds at Bully MT and so on and so forth. Not to say I'm the best curator or I have access to the world's information and all that stuff. I do, but I can't curate it because it's just too much. So I try to focus on a few things. And obviously, I'm not reading the French journalists, and I'm not reading the, Russian journalists. There's only a few I have access to because my language is English. So the other thing in Portugal, the most important thing to do, actually, other than maintain your health, is to build community and learn Portuguese. There are important priorities, and the top one is learn to speak the language and build community. Because this country is going through some really bad times, as are all countries right now. So if you're going to be an expat or a gig economy nomad or whatever, you better take into account that things aren't getting any easier. And traveling and visas are going to get more and more difficult as time goes on. So if you're into this, run around the world like I was, you better get busy. Otherwise, hunker down in your community and do the best you can to create as many nodes in your network as you can that are focused on on what's really happening in the world and not distracted by all the bullshit, because they're flooding the zone day in and day out, and it's taking brain power away from you and reducing your capacity to make sense of the world. Even the sense makers reduce your capacity. They're eloquent consultants, and they have nice, rhetoric and language, but what are they really doing other than getting a lot of attention? I mean, what are any of us doing? So anyway, that's a good one. I would look at Indica even if he makes you feel uncomfortable because you're a white, Western, American, human supremacist, and you're better than all the rest, and that the world will be fine as soon as Putler and Xi are gone and whatever, and we have a Democrat in the White House. Everything's going to be great. Manufacturing jobs. At the end of the day, we run out of materials. We run out of energy. And then we go back to scratching in the dirt for a living. And we're going to need each other at some point. You're going to look at your neighbor and go, my God, if my neighbor would just help me with my field for a day or something, you know, and that community and that love is going to come back. It's going to be not quite as easy a life, you know, hot showers every day, but it'll be a nice life. People got along without anything for thousands and thousands and thousands of years. And you can go back and say, it must have been miserable, man. No toilet paper? What the fuck did they do? But, you know, they managed to have babies and families and communities and towns and whatnot, festivals, and philosophy and literature, music. You know, ancient China, what was it? You know, um, come on, man. We're a resilient species, obviously, because we evolved to the point where we could literally destroy the world by pushing a freaking button. Now I have become death, the destroyer of worlds. And then you puff on your pipe. And, you know, so, yeah. Yeah, so I'll leave it there. Those are good articles. There's some other ones out there. But be careful how you treat your belief, you know, be skeptical, question them, question your own ideas. I've always done that, which doesn't make me holy or special, which is why I change my point of view more often than some people, I guess, because I'm examining, you know, where am I here? And does this make any sense? And I can't help it. It's just in my nature. But on the other side, though, honestly, if you are a competitive, borderline dark tetrad, sociopathic individual, whether you know it or not, you have a choice. The clear choice is you become a real human being and work to slow down this metastatic human growth system, this omnicidal heat engine, and build community and love and so on and so forth. Be a good person, or join the oligarch team ASAP, brah. Because if you're going to get into Balaji or one of these little communities, you know, with the nice golf courses and all the control and the power and the, you know, you're on TV talking about your next venture all the time and you're important like Mark Andreessen or whatever. You better get busy because the window for you to become a billionaire is closing. So you better do it quick. Get out there, you know, be vicious, be competitive, make it work, get your unicorn going, because you're going to run out of time. And then you're just going to be a servant of one of those oligarchs. That's your best chance, right? You're driving their yacht or working for them, massage therapy, something like that, in the gated community, because you're cool, you know how to kiss ass. And you're in the Trump administration. All I got to do is tell him he's cool and I can stay here and play my games. All right, take good care. Have a good one. William T. Out.